morning, folks. Good morning. I'm using my Bose headset, so I'm not sure if the audio is good or not. If you guys can give me a heads up, let me know. Good morning. If it's not, I'll disconnect. I'm using my Bose headset. Just hold the phone next to me. I'm not sure if the audio is good or not. If you guys can give me a heads up, let me know. Looking for a reply from you. If it's not, I'll disconnect. I'm using my Bose headset. Hold the phone next to me. I'm not sure if the audio is good or not. If you guys can give me a heads up, let me know. Looking for a reply from you. If it's not, I'll disconnect. I'm using my Bose headset. Hold the phone next to me. I'm not sure if the audio is good or not. If you guys can give me a heads up, let me know. Looking for a reply from you. If it's not, I'll disconnect. I'm using my Bose headset. Hold the phone next to me. I'm not sure if the audio is good or not. If you guys can give me a heads up, let me know. Looking for a reply from you. If it's not, I'll disconnect. I'm using my Bose headset. Thank you very much. I'm not sure if the audio is good or not. If you guys can give me a heads up, let me know. Looking for a reply from you. If it's not, I'll disconnect. I'm using my Bose headset. Thank you very much. I'm not sure if the audio is good or not. If you guys can give me a heads up, let me know. Looking for a reply from you. If it's not, I'll disconnect. I'm using my Bose headset. Thank you very much. I'm not sure if the audio is good or not. If you guys can give me a heads up, let me know. Looking for a reply from you. If it's not, I'll disconnect. I'm using my Bose headset. Thank you very much. I'm not sure if the audio is good or not. If you guys can give me a heads up, let me know. Looking for a reply from you. If it's not, I'll disconnect. I'm using my Bose headset. Thank you very much. I'm not sure if the audio is good or not. If you guys can give me a heads up, let me know. Looking for a reply from you. If it's not, I'll disconnect. I'm using my Bose headset. Thank you very much. I'm not sure if the audio is good or not. If you guys can give me a heads up, let me know. Looking for a reply from you. If it's not, I'll disconnect. I'm using my Bose headset. Thank you very much. I'm not sure if the audio is good or not. If you guys can give me a heads up, let me know. Looking for a reply from you. If it's not, I'll disconnect. I'm using my older students in the PM session and kind of like wanted to show what was difficult about yesterday. And obviously waking up later in the morning, I didn't see too much of high probability of anything. In the morning session, it was more or less seek and destroy. Higher highs, lower lows, higher highs, lower lows, back and forth. And then finally during the lunch hour, kept pressing higher, going into that new week opening gap. And then finally closing on the high at that gap. So I want to kind of talk a little bit about what it was like when I was younger and also what my son experienced. And in case you don't know, my son has a funded account challenge, or what's it called, a combine that he wanted to go that route, and that's fine, whatever. Never traded before, and he is one of those individuals that, like, and I mention it a lot of times, where you show somebody something, and even before you're done showing it, that you haven't even got through the entire presentation or illustration or example of it, they want to take it and try to do it too right away. That's my son. He's 100 mile an hour. He's always been that way. He was real quick to get up and walk as a baby, and once he started moving, he doesn't stop. He's just he's going. One of the things I wanted to do, but I felt that was a little bit overbearing, I wanted to have him set up the account where he didn't have access to it without me sitting there. But he's 18, and I felt that was a little out of place. And maybe I'm, trying to protect too much, but this is what I didn't want to see happen, at least to this degree. It's not terrible, don't get me wrong, because the account that he tried to work with was the $150,000 funded account combine. So you're not getting 150,000, let's be real, but he was able to see 153,400 something. I think that's what he said the high was yesterday. And he didn't feel that was enough. And he wanted to impress me and try to get it over 155. Well, you know what that means. You probably experienced this as well. And when I was younger, whenever I was doing incrementally good, not that I was trading great because I was new, but the times that I would get in, be profitable, and then not hold the trade because I was either nervous or I second guessed myself, I would close the trade early. And then it would run in my favor. And if I just would have held on to it, it would have hit my target, and that would have been much more satisfying. But because it didn't happen that way, And it's just a typical thing for someone that's new. So if you experience this, or even someone that's never been consistently profitable, whenever you get a win, whether it be small or sizable, you don't really feel good about it because what's happening is new to you. You don't know where it's going. So you feel like you got to close the trade prematurely because you're afraid it's going to become a losing trade. And you really don't know where it's going to go, which is the reason why I teach all of you to learn to draw on liquidity. Where is it likely to go? If you don't have that, you're going to be a victim to your own emotions and you'll psych yourself out. So yesterday morning, he got lucky on his first move. Actually made 831 on a short. Got out actually at a pretty decent location before it reversed and went higher. Now, if he was following the rules, that would have been it. That would have been it, and I wouldn't have been upset had he shown me just that, because the rules were, like, I have to be there. Like, I got to be there next to you. I want to observe what you're doing. No, that wasn't happening. He wanted to get in there and drive it. Well, he did. Went from 153.4, which was $3,400, towards the $9,000 you have to get to before you get funded. I guess that's what they call it. You pass the first phase combine. You drop down to 149,000 and some change. Now that's nothing. Literally, I mean, I could sit there with him this week and tell him, look, go here, do this, do that, do this, and he'll push the button, and we can get right back up to that pre-Friday morning issue. It was very difficult for me not to go off the rails and like be more of a dad than ICT the coach. Like, I wanted to tell him, look, that was not something you do. And it could have been the entirety. Like, it could have been, well, I guess it couldn't have been really. Now I think about it. They have like a limit and then they stop you. So whatever that limit, that threshold is, it keeps you, I guess, from doing more damage to whatever. But he didn't want to say anything to me. And that was the first tip off. So when I got up and I walked out and I saw him, he broke eye contact with me and grabbed all of his, his phone and stuff and started moving around. I'm like, he's not wanting to say anything to me. He's giving me a chance to get my bearings. I just woke up. No. A couple minutes later, he's still not saying anything. So I know right away, okay, what's going on? Is it the girlfriend? And no, it's not the girlfriend. Are we doing anything today? And I think he was hoping it was going to be the answer no. That would guess buy him some time over the weekend. No, we're going to look at the afternoon session. Let's go take a look at it. He goes, well, I want to talk to you about something, Dad. And I was like, oh yeah, what's that? He goes, oh, I did good on the first move this morning. And I was like, you did good what? Like paper? Like you're watching tape reading? He goes, no, I actually did. It was 831. 831. Oh wow! So I'm thinking, man, all right. Even though I wasn't there, I'm a little irritated by that. But then he goes, but I broke some rules. Rules, plural. So right away I'm thinking, okay, you lost the 830. Okay, big deal. I'm preparing myself for that. No, he just says, you got to take a look at it to see it. I was like, okay. So I saw it and I was like, okay, you got to recognize this is the improper way of doing it. Number one, you're driving without someone next to you. Like you're under your provisions still, okay, as a trader. You don't know what you're doing. And I appreciate your enthusiasm. I appreciate your excitement to try to do something, but this isn't a video game. And you don't really know what you're doing yet, which is the reason why I'm sitting next to you, explaining to you what it is that you should be seeing. And I'm evaluating when you want to do something, when you think it's about to be there in terms of a setup, That's why you're talking to me, telling me what you think you see, because then I will tell you, that's not that. Wait for the next one. That's the whole purpose of me being next to you. I'm filtering what you think you're seeing. So I'm allowing for you to see it, observe it, but I'm also canceling out the ones that aren't not good. That's the reason why you were having 100% strike rate. That's the reason why you were going in, getting that move, and it's done, and it had next to no drawdown. You got lucky in the morning, and you had what would have been the largest win since you opened it up last Friday. You should have stopped right then and there and didn't do anything else. Why did you go back in? Now listen to the reasons, okay? I thought that it was going to keep moving and have a big range day on the daily chart. He saw relative equal lows, and he wanted to see it go down to take that out. And he kept trying to do that, not understanding that we had already traded down into a new week opening gap for the week. It had multiple attempts to go lower and was failing to do that. It was the chart basically I shared on Twitter. And the range that it would return back into would be that down move. It's going to trade up into what? Buy side liquidity or premium inefficiencies. So he kept trying and kept trying and kept trying. And he said he had one or two times where he tried to go long, but he was afraid to hold the long because he felt that those relative equal lows was going to be the one that they take out. So he kept pushing, and small little incremental slices took away the 831 and then took away the week of gains and progress that we were able to put onto it. And now he sits at 149. So I told him, I said, well, first and foremost, number one, the rule is this: you do not do this without me next to you. And he's like, that's not going to happen anymore. I know now I'm not ready. And it makes me angry because I thought I could see it. And I was like, you're not going to learn it that quick. Like, this is exactly what all of you listening to me here in this Twitter space tend to do as well. You're just like that impatient person, like when you're trying to show somebody, I'm a novice magician since I was a child. Okay, I've always enjoyed it. Do card tricks and coin tricks and all that kind of stuff. And invariably, I would always show somebody something. And there's just one guy in the crowd always that wants to pretend or show that they know how it was done. And they try to do it, and of course they fall on their face and look stupid. And then because they can't do it, then they attack you and say, well, it's really not any trick to it. It's this or that, whatever. That's a weak-minded person, okay? And everybody comes into trading as a weak-minded person. You're impatient. You want to rush to making money. You want to rush to do something right because you want to feel smart. You want to feel good about yourself. And my son is very results driven. Like he wants to get accolades early. He does well in the sports. He does well in his video games. He's done well academically. He just always wants to do better than everyone else. And that's kind of like ingrained in the DNA from me. Of all my children, he's that one. And I tried to explain to him, I said, listen, this is an industry, this is a thing, okay, that you can't do that in. As much as you're going to be feeling inside that you're going to be able to do that, with this, you won't. Believe me, it's hard for me to tell you that because you're my son, but I'm also telling you because, number one, I thought I was going to be the exception, and I wasn't the exception. And it's very difficult to accept that when it first happens, and you just had it slammed upside your forehead. Right now, you are at that point where most traders that are coming up either go completely into tilt, where they just turn into a gambler, and they don't look at this as they did it, they undid themselves. It isn't a system failure. It means that was recklessness. And you need to understand that was recklessness. You can't do these things and expect it to come out with good outcomes. So, to be honest with you, I don't even know how to pull up, the trades. And so if you guys are aware of how to do that, I don't know how to go back and look at, if we do a trade in paper trading on TradingView or your live trades, you can see the little executions and it tells you where. I don't know how to do that with the funded accounts. So if you can help me with that, I would love to be able to go back and see what he did. But I don't have that in front of me. I just know that this is the aftermath and this is what he's done. So I got to obviously help him next week to recoup that. But the mental aspects of having done so, he's feeling that. A little bit of embarrassment, a little bit of, his pride being bruised. And as much as it is not fun to see him go through it, when I see some of you come out and say, I did this to myself and I knew what I was doing was wrong, but I still did it and I feel like crap. And I always try to tell you, look, chin up, this is normal, everybody goes through it. It's true still with my son, but it's different because it's my son. So it's a little weird. I kind of anticipated this coming because I'm pushing him into settings where that's going to happen. But I was hoping it would happen right where I was sitting next to him, and his overzealous nature, he just did it and I wasn't there. So, which is fine. He's 18. It's his prerogative. He can do that. But I told him, I said, listen, if you want to learn how to do this, you have to submit to this process that this is the way I'm going to do it with you. Otherwise, I'm going to leave you to learning it from the videos alone. Now, I'm not really wanting you to go through it that way. It's not going to be the same as if me sitting next to you and I'm going to filter it and explain it to you. You'll be able to have that advantage that I'm not making available to everybody else because I'm not obligated to all of you. But I feel obligated to him because he's my son, he's my offspring. And I want him to be equipped to be just like and better than me. So he's had that first experience of undoing himself. He feels the shame, he feels the remorse, the regrets, and I want him to understand that that's normal. So you're going to have times when you're just going to do it. You're going to do that. You're going to feel confident about yourself. You're going to be overconfident. You're going to have a losing trade. Or you'll have that experience where you made money. It felt great. You want to do it again because you feel like it's going to move even more. And then you try to go back in again and it's not doing what you want it to do. And then now you got to go into fixing. You're starting to put fires out that you started yourself. But you don't realize it's not water that you're pouring on the fire. You're pouring gasoline on it. And it accelerates. And that wildfire spreads and it eats into not only the gain that you were unsatisfied with, but now it starts eating into equity that you worked hard for to build up, and then enter into drawdown. And that threshold, it's okay to lose what you made on a trading day. It's easy to tolerate that. It's just frustration. Yeah, it sucks a little bit. But then when you eat up what you worked for a week or a month or so, that really hurts. That's like a kick in the joint. You don't really like that. It sucks. And especially if you go into a weekend as a trader, that really, really stings. And it takes the pleasure out of everything. Food don't taste as well. Friends, company, that irritates the shit out of you. Everything is heightened. And it feels like thorns. No comfort. No rest. And you punish yourself. He's feeling that. But when you get into drawdown, where you go beyond where you started, and you did it to yourself, and you just recklessly plunge in there trying to get it back quickly, and you just keep doing more damage. I think that's actually a good thing, that the funded account companies have that threshold where they stop you. It's like you can't do anymore. That's it. You've done enough. And it makes you have to take a step back and reevaluate what you're doing. Now, he doesn't know why it didn't work. He just thought he saw the things that he's supposed to be looking for. What did he have wrong? Apart from going back in when he had a really respectful return, $831. That's a nice little return. That's actually above the range of target that I had set forth for him, saying, look, this is all you're trying to do. You're trying to do this, nothing else. You're not trying to get rich. You're not trying to blow it up. You're not trying to pass the combine in a week. You're not trying to pass it in 5 days. Okay. We set the pace for 2 weeks. 2 weeks. That means next Friday, his target should have been reaching I guess it would be part 2 or phase 2 of it. And he was well on track with that. Now I got to go in and help him get back to that square one. And you might think, oh, well, you shouldn't do that. Well, it's my son. Don't tell me what the fuck to do. Okay. But I'm sharing something with you that I'm not obligated to share. But I want you to understand, just because he's my son, there isn't some kind of carryover because he has my DNA in him. He has every character flaw that a male has: pride, arrogance, impatience. He wants to flex. That's in him. He's rushing to be able to flex. And now he's wrestling with that now. He's like, I blew it. And now I feel bad because we worked several days, and then now I got to go back and do that all over again. More specifically, I got to hear you tell me that it was my fault when I already keep telling myself inside my head it's my fault. Well, that's all part of it. You have to feel that pain. It has to be a consequence, formidable consequence, something that is, it's going to shake you up and make you feel like you don't ever want to risk doing that again, because this is what you feel. This is what it's like. And all that work that you went through the first time, where it felt effortless, it felt fun, it was an experience that was enjoyable. Now you're in under where they start you at, because they gave you at 150. Now you're at 149, a little bit over 149. So now you have to get back to that starting point. And everything you do now, every trade, you're going to be concerned much more so about the outcome because you're in drawdown. And that creates toxic thinking. And you tend to do what? You tend to avoid following the rules. You basically abandon everything that you're supposed to be doing, which is the reason why people fail themselves and they blow their account. Because now you've increased the sensitivity to every transaction you make until you get back to your equity high. Like, that's the magic thing. Like, that's the magic number. You have to have that money back in your account, or you're going to be scared all the time. And in your mind, you're thinking, and everybody does this. Okay, this is what it felt like for me when I first blew my first account, or approaching, going back in through correcting drawdown. Everybody that goes through drawdown, everyone, I don't give a fuck how long you've been trading, how much money you make. When you go through drawdown and you have an equity high and you've drawn down from that equity high, you feel like you're staring up at a mountain. And it may not even be that much money. And this is not a lot of money. I could literally do his entire funded account shit on Monday. I could get him at 159 rate. I can do $10,000 on Monday. I can do that. That's not what this is about. I'm teaching him, but now this lesson came a whole lot sooner and not in the way I wanted it to happen. I wanted him to do those things in front of me where I can control how much the drawdown was, and then teach him right then and there. Okay, now this is what you're going to do to mitigate it. You're going to stop right here today. Leave it alone. Go home with the loss. And then we'll come back tomorrow, trade with half the size, and then build it back up. And then you'll be fine. You won't be afraid of it. So now he has that toxic feeling of impatience. I got to get it back. And I'm sure he feels it even worse than you would, because ICT's his dad. He knows I'm going to be in his ass about it. Not yet, because I don't want to add to what he's already feeling. But once we get it back up, I'm going to get into his ass. Okay. But he needs to be on good footing before I do that, because I don't want to crush his spirit. Once he has the account back up, then I can chew into his ass and tell him, look, this is what you did wrong. This is how you've now impacted your perspective on price. You don't realize it yet, but you're going to remember this every single time you get into a trade and it starts drawing against you, even a little bit. It's just the beginning of that same thing I just did to myself in the beginning. 3 years from now, you're going to think that same thing. And there's two perspectives to have in mind. You can look at that and then cause it and allow it to cause paralysis and second guess yourself. Or you can say, yep, that's the reason why I'm using a stop loss. Yep, that's the reason why I'm not over leveraging. Yep, that's the reason why I'm going to take a loss in the session and stop and come back the next session. If I'm not all going to trade anymore today, I have to wait and come back in the next session. You place time between your transactions. Because if you're trading when you take a loss and you go right back in, unless you have a lot of experience, it's better for you to take a step away, put time between that, because you have chemicals coursing through your bloodstream that are really having an impact on how you see things. See, in your mind, you see that loss or that drawdown as an emergency, just like he felt on Friday morning. He felt that that was an emergency. He could lose that entire thing and have to reset it. I would not be ashamed of that, because that's normal. He doesn't know what he's doing. Left to his own devices and his own intellect, he would absolutely 100%, 1,000% likelihood he's going to fail that if I'm not next to him. And that was the reason why I told him, I said, make these decisions when I'm next to you and let me filter them for you. Okay? You'll learn still by doing it, but let me at least be there to filter it. And Friday morning, he wanted to be, 18 in life to go mentality. He's going to go out there and be a murderer and kill it. And bottom line is, he wasn't ready. And he found out by shock and awe that he was absolutely not ready. And if they didn't have that threshold of stopping him, he probably would have done more damage. Because listening to him, I didn't get any kind of indication that he had any brakes. So he was pushing and pushing until the brakes came off. He wasn't going to stop until he was done, one way or the other. And that's exactly how all of you, and that's exactly how I was as a 20-year-old when I was blowing accounts. That's exactly what it was like in my head. I'm going to push this bitch until the brakes come off. Nothing's stopping me. No one could have told me, stop what you're doing. You're being careless, reckless, you're gambling, you're trying to do something that's impossible to do right now. Your clarity is escaping you. You don't have it. You're literally just pushing the button, hoping something happens with no reason for having any reason to be in the trade. You just want to do something. You feel like you got to do something. Why? Why do you feel like that? Because you have adrenaline coursing through your body and you scared the shit out of yourself, and cortisol. Those two chemicals in your body is telling you what? The same thing your brain is telling you. You've made it an emergency. You're lying to yourself by saying, I should be panicking right now, when you shouldn't be. The opposite. As soon as you start feeling emotional about it, like you have to take the trade, you've got to get in there, that is the clearest indication to turn them fucking charts off. Leave your house, go for a drive with your phone not in your hand, and spend at least 30 minutes away. You got to let those chemicals and imbalances burn off, because you're literally under the influence of high stress chemicals that our bodies produce to enable us to fight or run away. It's fight or flight. And you're sitting here in front of these charts telling yourself that there's an emergency that you've created. And there's a fire that you got to put out. You know how you put it out? It's real easy. Close all positions, remove all orders, turn the charts off, get the fuck away from it. There it is. It's handled. No more emergency. That's it. You have a paper cut. Yes, your pride's hurt. Yes, you did damage to the account, but you have an account still. If you blow the account, yeah, you burned your house down. It sucks. But all of that still is not an emergency. You can refund, you can reset, you can add more money to an account, all that. But see, what happens is when you draw down from an equity high, especially when you're new, and then you fall from that height, and $3,400 is shit money. Like, that's nothing. It's not even real money. It's the combine. But in his mind, he's thinking, like, that's a lot of money to him. And he wants to get funded. He wants to, and here's the reason why he's wanting to rush too. They have senior week coming up in June, where all the kids here, they all go down to Eastern Shore and rent hotel rooms, and they all act like fools and carry on. And he wants to have a lot of money to just do whatever and be a baller in front of his girlfriend. And that was what was in his mind Friday morning. He wanted to be out there, throwing dollar bills around, like a madman, and looking, padded out. Because he knows I'm not going to throw money in like that, because I know he's going down there to be foolish. So I tell him save all his money that he's earning at his coffee shop job, and then he spends that. So of course, being a young man, he wants to have more than that. So when you have these equity highs that you slip away from and you have drawdown, it literally feels like you're walking up to a mountain and you're looking up, getting a kink in your neck as you look up at the height, and you tell yourself, I gotta get all the way back up there. When before, when you were building it up, you didn't look at that like that. You were just trying to take one trade at a time. It was just one step at a time, like a rock climber. Where's my next foothold? Where's my next gripping point? That's all you cared about. You're doing the right thing. That's following the model. Now what's happening is when you are in drawdown, you're looking up at that mountain, that peak that you slid down from. And you're thinking, how am I going to get back up there? Well, fuck, how did you get there the first time? Incremental, modular steps. Basic, boring, following the rules, doing this, expecting that, doing this, expecting that, one piece at a time. Think about it. Before you go into drawdown, you're not trying to do crazy shit. You're just trying to do what's the next trade. Do that. Stop. Make your money, be done, turn the charts off, wait for the next session, wait for the next trading day. It's business. But now you're looking at that same business that you now have a loss. You're in drawdown. You're looking up at that old equity high, and you're telling yourself, this is going to be so hard to get back up to that. I just want to get through it really, really fast. And you're wrestling with these impulsive feelings that you got to get in there and just do really big trades, because you just got to get through it. The quicker I can climb back up there, the better. When that's absolutely the worst mentality to have. You need to tell yourself the same thing you did before. I'm going to find my next setup based on the model. I'm going to risk less money. I'm submitting to the idea now because I have to do this at a longer duration. I've pushed my finish line further away from me in time because I've created this drawdown. The drawdown is not it's not an end of a career. It's a struggling point you have to wrestle through, yes. But the wonderful thing is, once you go through that first drawdown and you mitigate all of that, but you do so correctly. The worst thing you can do is go in there and YOLO You only live once type trading, to try to get it all back in one fell swoop. It's over. Because what you'll think if you are able to do that by luck is that you're better than you really are. And that drawdown has not had any lasting impression on you to prevent you from being reckless in the future. So you're looking up at that peak, that equity high that you drew down from, losing trade here, losing trade there, and now you're in drawdown. You're not to look at that and say, I got to quickly get back there. No, you don't. Because when you were taking your trades that got you there, you didn't say, I have to be there by this day. Nobody had that mentality, that mindset. When you were getting to that equity high, you were just taking one trade, next trade, next trade. That's all you're doing. But now, because you're in drawdown, your whole entire perspective about yourself, your abilities, and how it is that you're going to get back up there is completely distorted. That's what makes drawdown become a blown account. Not understanding that mentality that you're now holding is extremely fragile. It's so brittle that the next trade you put on, you're going to be so hypersensitive to every little fluctuation that it's going to make you scared. You're going to be impatient about it. You will not be willing to sit through the stop being hit again. You're going to be more likely to not want to use a stop loss like he did on Friday morning. And then when you don't have a stop and it goes past what your stop would have been, you'll be wrestling with, well, if I get out, it might be just going just past where my stop would have been, and then it reverses, and you start telling yourself that bullshit. You start giving yourself pillow talk on a one-night stand. Oh, honey, I really enjoyed the time with you. Let me just stay a little bit longer with you. When really you just want them to fall asleep so you can sneak out. You know you shouldn't be in that trade, but you start doing pillow talk. Yeah, I'll be all right. It's probably going to turn around, and the whole time it's just going deeper into you, running that sword deeper into you, and more damage is being done. And then finally you can't handle it and you get out. And then it moves in your favor. Not because your trade would have panned out, but because it's simply just doing something else. But your mind's going to see, oh, see, I did it wrong. And now you're going to go in there and chase it again. That's exactly what goes on in every trader's mind. When they're in drawdown, that's exactly what it is. So the only thing that is actually good about this is it happened on a Friday. So it forces 48 hours of decompression. You have to take time. You have to reset yourself. You got to remind yourself with positive self-talk that nothing has changed. These markets are still going to book the same way they book all the time. They're going to run for liquidity. They're going to go from premium to discount, discount to premium. They're going to run to inefficiencies. Everything's going to operate on time. You just did something incorrect. In this moment, because he's new, he doesn't have but just a couple of days of journals to look at. So he doesn't really have a plethora of experience of leaning back on when it was good. This is why it's essential for you to be demoing, well, not demoing, to be journaling. That way, when you start practicing with forward testing and you feel like you have encountered a period where maybe they changed the algorithm, they're not changing shit, but you'll feel like everything's broke because you're just doing it wrong. And you'll feel depressed. You'll feel like you're not getting it. You go back to your journal and you read those entries where you saw this coming. The chart looks like this, and you feel better about it. And it gives you the motivation. It cheerleads you through it. He doesn't have that. So it's a lot harder for him right now because he's shamed, wanted to impress dad, wanted to do well, wanted to do something independent, all of himself. And then he did that. So $4,000 of what would be considered drawdown is nothing. That's a morning session on a couple contracts for me. And I spent the afternoon on Friday basically explaining to him that, listen, like, even though Friday was a bit of a crummy day technically, like it was a lot of give and take, spotty price action. It looked like I was watching the Dow futures when I was looking at ES. And when I was working with my older students, we were watching some of the price action. It was just really weird. And I called out and marked out, with them and my son, several 5-handle runs here and there, back and forth. And I told him, I said, listen, don't be afraid because you did this to be able to go forward. Don't let it bog you down to make you feel like you're going to never be able to do this, because you're going to tell yourself all this weekend that you made a mistake and you want to be able to go back in time and never have done it. It's every trader's, regret. When they lose money. I think my dog see the deer outside. We all want to go back in time and not push the button on that trade, or start trading on that day when you knew really wasn't anything in there to be trading, but I got time and get in and push the button. Maybe I'll get lucky and get some kind of a win. All those things we know after the fact, where hindsight's perfectly 20/20, and you can go back and pinpoint what it is that you did wrong. He's experiencing that for the first time right now. He's having to come to grips with nobody did it. Nobody did it to him. And he's looking for some way internally how he can take the responsibility and place it on something outside of himself. Just like I did when I was 20, and just like you listening to me. Even the people that say I'm a fraud and my stuff doesn't work, that shit's the truth about you too. You want to find some kind of external reason why you fucked up because it's uncomfortable. And that's what this industry does. It's a perfect mirror. It's better than the mirror when you go to your restroom and you look at yourself in the morning, brushing your teeth, getting yourself ready. That mirror just shows you a reflection of you. This industry shows you who you really are, because you can lie in that mirror. You can comb your hair and put makeup on and shave your face and put contact lenses on that are a different color. You do all kinds of shit to change that. You can't wear a mask in this industry. All the masks fall off. As soon as you push that button, the real you is exposed. The real person inside of you, the person making the decisions, the one that's driving drunk behind the buys and the sells. That's it. That's the person that's responsible. And that sometimes is extremely difficult for an individual to take. It's extremely stressful. It's alarming sometimes when you discover, wow, I don't really have it all together. I thought I had it figured out. I had all these things, planned with all this success. And then when you put that trade on and you wrecked yourself, and then you tried to fix it, not knowing what it is you're doing, and then becoming impulsive, instead of realizing that, okay, I caused this situation, let me take a step back and slow down. That doesn't happen. It's speed up, do more of the same stupid stuff, and get worse. Why do you do that? Cortisol, adrenaline, and not knowing what you're doing. Remember, in your mind, it's the equivalent of you standing in your house with every wall on fire. The room you're in is filling up with smoke. It's an emergency. Outwardly, someone looking at you, they would never feel like that's what's going on inside your head. They happen to walk by, look at you at your trading desk. Yeah, you're in drawdown. Maybe you're not smiling, but they don't feel like you're going through any kind of emergency. But inside, the whole fucking world's coming to an end. And then what are you doing? You're trying to put out all those fires. That's what he experienced. That's what I experienced every time I blew an account. That's exactly what you experience all the time too. Send me a tweet and tell me, hell yeah, if that's exactly what you've encountered when you blew your account. And you'll see, you're not the only one. Everybody has gone through this at least a dozen times. Not just once, a dozen times. And until you get to that point where you know your model and you have mastered yourself, you know, an 18-year-old kid, especially a male, I mean, he's never going to be in control of himself. Not at 18. There's too many chemicals, you know, being pushed through his natural development. I mean, he's at the peak of his testosterone too, so he feels like he can do everything, like he's superhuman. And that's why it's a little bit harder of a prick to his ego and pride when any failure comes, because he thinks that it should be the same feeling he has when he does anything else and succeeds at. So it's good for him to be humbled. It's good for him to learn like he's learning right now. It's also good for dad because I didn't give him money, because he would have probably spent more money in drawdown or bloating the account without me being there. So in a lot of ways, I'm very thankful that he took this initiative to go this route. And I think that's the reason why he wanted to do it, because he knew his own impulses. He had it in his head. He didn't tell me, but I can tell you now, as I'm talking to you about and thinking about it, he had that in mind. Once he figured out what he thought he was going to be able to do, as soon as he felt that he could do that, when he was given the car keys without me in the car with him, riding shotgun, he was just going to go, he's going to go drive to town, and he was going to drive it until the brakes came off. And thankfully, he ran out of gas. And that threshold that they put you through, or two, and stop you, that's what he hit. So he didn't go off the bridge, but he hit a tree. So now he has damage that he has to get corrected. Still has the car to drive, $149,000 of that funded account thing, but I think it's like 147 something. Okay, but he has to be very careful. And I told him, I said, you got to listen and don't do anything apart from me being next to you. You don't have to do a reset. Because he was saying worst case scenario, Dad, if I would have blown it out, because that's what he was willing to accept, we could just do a reset. I don't care. I'll do that. But I just wanted to get it back right away. Why? Why did you feel like you have to get it back right away? Because I felt like I had to get it back. It just felt like I had to. No, you were telling yourself that. Nothing has to happen. Nothing. Nothing has to happen. You have to be comfortable between trades. You cannot have any kind of overwhelming impulsiveness to get in there to make something back or make something more. If you're doing that, that's the improper mindset. You are gambling. I promise you, if you're listening to me right now, if you are unstable and highly emotional, impatiently waiting to get into a trade, the best advice I can tell you is go do something else for 30 minutes. Come back. If you miss the move, who cares? That's not the last trade that's going to form. But if you lose your shit about having missed that move, you are a gambler. You are absolutely an uncontrolled gambler. You feel like you got to be in every move. I'm not teaching you to do that. And yesterday afternoon, I basically sat down with my son, and my older students they were privy to what I was doing. I was showing him buying and selling, up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down. And I said, listen, just because I can do this, just because I can do that, doesn't mean I sit in front of these charts and do that all day long. I want to pick my shots. I want to be able to do what makes sense to me. And the trade I know is likely to occur, and I'm not in a rush to get into, and everything lines up, and I have all the signatures I'm looking for. They're the ones I tweet to you. They're the ones that I'm going in and telling you, okay, I'm going long here. I'm taking a short. And they, boom, take off. Well, there's one. I did lose one. And I see people tweeting all the time. You did that on purpose. You took a, no, I got it wrong that day. I'm not infallible. I did it wrong. But most times I'm not doing it wrong. I'm calling it before it happens, and there it is. But I showed him, I said, listen, just because I can do that doesn't mean I go in there and go hog wild with it. It's not necessary. You need to master yourself. Just because you have the sword in your hand and you can swing it all around doesn't mean that that's what you should be doing. You should keep it in its scabbard, unsheathe it, do one stroke. Ido. It's the art of drawing the sword. You pull that blade out. As you're drawing it, it's also a cut. You remove the blood and then put it back in the scabbard. The cut and the drawing of the sword is all one motion. You're not out there like Jason Voorhees in Friday the 13th fucking swinging around like a machete trying to cut everything. And that's exactly what you become, a crazed, homicidal fucking psychopath when you're in drawdown. You literally have a machete in your hand and you think every candlestick's a fucking tree that you got to chop down. This is the one I'm going to do next. Oh, yeah, you printed that? Let me go. And the whole time, you're hacking yourself up. You're not cutting anything down except for your equity base. And you don't even realize it because you're a crazed homicidal maniac because you did it to yourself. And you're looking at it like somebody else did it to you or something else did it to you. And you did it. You have lost the plot. You've lost control of yourself. And the only thing that fixes that, time. You have to separate yourself, move away from the stimuli that's causing you to want to do those things. Ground yourself, let the adrenaline and the cortisol burn off. It's going to take about a good 30 minutes. Cortisol lasts a little bit longer than the adrenaline. Adrenaline, several minutes and it's gone. Cortisol, it takes a little bit more time to burn that off. And then once you are in a proper state of mind, then you can deal with other things in your personal life and not be so snappy and punchy, ready to fight and have an argument. You won't feel like every little word that's being spoken to you has needles on it, pricking you. You won't argue with your spouse. You won't yell at your kids. You won't kick the dog. You won't get fired at your job. But when you're looking at that drawdown and you're staring up at it like it's a mountain that you're never going to be able to climb back up, and you have to hurry up and get back up there, like that's the thing that has to happen. Stop and listen to me for a second, okay? Nothing has changed. Everything is exactly the way it is right now and how it was exactly the same way when you were at the equity high. The system, the concepts, the methodology, and the way these markets book have not changed. The only thing that has changed is your perception about yourself, your own ability, and what you're going to do next. See, you have a sense of heightened concern. You had a house fire. You want to hurry up and get your house restored. Does it happen like that in real life? No. You lose some things that you can't get back. That sense of I'm doing everything right, this feels great, this is a lot easier than I thought it was while you were making that equity high. Now you have loss. You didn't need to second guess yourself in the beginning, but now you have to second guess yourself. Am I going to do that to myself again? What am I going to do? If this trade turns against me, how am I going to feel? See, now you have that in your mind now. And you're feeling it when you don't know how to trade, which causes a great deal of anxiety, performance anxiety. And it's easy to talk yourself out of ever staying with this when that happens. And a lot of people quit. A lot of people quit, but still push the button because they can't take themselves away from it because they're in a state of mind, they're impulsive, they're reckless, and they just aren't willing to wrestle themselves into discipline. They've already quit subconsciously. They know they're never going to be able to do it, but they just want to push the button. Much like I mentioned before in a Twitter space, and I think I talked about it one time on a YouTube video lecture somewhere. On my first year honeymoon, I told you I took $100. That's all I had to take input into a, what do you call them? The slot machines. I could have brought more, but all I wanted to bring was $100 because I knew the chance of me making any money off of that is next to none. So I limited myself to $100. And I tried eventually, after being there for hours, trying to lose the $100. Like I was down, just wanted to be done with it, but I didn't want to walk away because I was like, this is stupid. Like I just want to lose it and be done. That's exactly what happens when you trade with the state of mind that my son has right now. You want to be able to say that you got pushed out of it by some external force. Yeah, stupid brokers. Yeah, the stupid market makers. They did it to me again. They got my stop. Oh, because then it makes it a lot easier to deal with. You didn't mess up. It was somebody else that did it to you. You didn't do anything wrong. You did everything wrong. You did everything wrong. And you have no sense of responsibility. And unfortunately, in this industry, responsibility is always yours. It's yours. It's not mine as the mentor. It's not your broker's. It's not the funded account company. It's not the company that you keep. It's not your spouse. It's yours. And some people that come into my fold or in this industry don't ever have the responsibility that's required to be a trader. And when they're first introduced to that necessity of having responsibility by having losing trades, when they did it to themselves, oh, this stuff doesn't work. It's a fraud. It's a scam. Despite how many times have I shown you beforehand what's going to happen. You've seen me executing trades. You have seen me use a live account. It's on my YouTube channel. I showed you every day logging into it. I showed you losing trades. I showed you drawdown, correcting the drawdown, doubling the account in 5 weeks with one contract. But you didn't show 30 years of that. Get the fuck out of here. I don't need to. I'm showing you every day what it's going to do. Everybody that has a weak mind, they're going to manifest that outwardly in this industry when they suck ass. You can see who the weak people are, the people that chat too much. These things don't work. These things aren't profitable. These people are broke. They're in that state of mind that my son's feeling right now, and they never got out of it. They never got out of it. They're the guy that never got picked to be on the team. They're the last one picked, and they got a chip on their shoulder. My son has a chip on his shoulder right now. And I'm eager to see how he contends with that.